Hey, my name is Paul, and this little fella is Dave. Today on our ensemble of glitches and paranormal stories, we begin with possibly true crime mixed with the paranormal. Maybe a glitch? Hard to say which one it lands on, but it's quite something. And today's stories have a strong theme. I think you'll see. Let's get to it. Story by Zalala. She took the wheel. I've heard my mom tell this story many times over the course of my life. So, she was probably around 20 years old, and after a day of shopping at a mall in Texas, she went out into the parking lot to find her car tires slashed. As if on cue, a man approaches her and tells her he's noticed her tires are flat and conveniently offers to give her a ride. In a fateful moment of naivety, she accepts his offer and gets in his pickup truck. As he begins driving away, he firmly grabs her with one arm and places a weapon against her. It's clear to her then that he's most likely intending to drive to a desolate place where, fill in the blanks. She says she remembers what happens from that point on in great detail. One thing she emphasizes when telling this story is that she struggled the whole time even with the man's weapon pressed up against her. She assumed his plan was to assault her. She acted on the assumption that he wouldn't simply end her life here and now. She fought against him, clawing, scratching, kicking wildly at the windows. She says she was fighting and kicking so ferociously, her shoes flew off and her jeans somehow came unbuttoned and unzipped and worked their way down and off her legs. She was in survival mode, and her abductor is starting to become agitated. He's now struggling to keep control of her while still driving. At some point during the scuffle, she remembers a sudden feeling of tranquility falling over her. She stops struggling for a moment, and it's eerily silent, as if she was in the eye of a tornado. Something is building in the air. Something is coming. And then the voice. Amidst the silence, she suddenly hears an inexplicable voice, like a harsh whisper, urging her to act. Now! It speaks. In that moment, she has the mysterious impulse to jerk the steering wheel violently. As she does this, the man freaks out and instinctually, he releases his hold on her to correct the wheel. She flings herself at the car door, opens it, and hurls herself out onto the highway, where she rolls a couple of times toward the side of the road. Despite the truck driving at roughly 70 miles per hour when she leapt, she isn't injured beyond a couple of minor scrapes. Something she also relates to being a miracle. As she's trying to compose herself on the side of an empty rural highway, in only her shirt and her underwear, she sees the truck make a U-turn down the road and head back towards her. In a stroke of luck, this seemingly deserted highway happened to have one car driving through at that moment, from the opposite direction. It was a small, compact car, and yet it contained multiple large, burly men who, upon seeing my mom distressed by the side of the road, pulled over to see if she was all right. Because of them, the man in the pickup truck kept on driving, and my mom was saved. Several months later, my mom was stunned to see a newspaper article featuring a picture of the man that had abducted her. It turns out he had been arrested for harming, and worse, several women. She still has that article laminated and saved to this day, to remind her of how close she came to being a victim. She used this story as a way to teach my sister and I to never get in vehicles with strangers, and should we ever find ourselves in a situation similar to hers, to fight as hard as you can for your life. I talked to my mom about it tonight. She found a couple of the newspaper snippets she'd saved, as well as a composite image she'd arranged of her abductor's face for the police, of which I had forgotten about. I have to say, it looks remarkably accurate. His name is Larry Keith Robison, also known as the Lake Worth murderer. Firstly, yes, she did go to the police, where she created the composite sketch. She identified Robison as the man that had abducted her to the police later on. When she saw the news article about him, he was already charged with 3 counts of murder and set to go to trial for them, and she was told by police that if for some reason he was found not guilty, then they would pursue charging and trying him for her abduction. She was reassured that she wouldn't have to go through the court process unless they really needed her testimony to put that guy away for a very, very long time, where he belonged. He was eventually executed for the 3 murders he was convicted of. Looking at the photos of him is eerie. He's gesturing at the photographers with absolutely no remorse. He was a cold-blooded monster, and my mom was sincerely relieved when he was removed from this world. Okay, so this might be my favorite story in a long time. I don't even know. I don't really go into true crime, like even on a personal level, listening to other people, like true crime podcasts or reading stories about it, because it's so close to home, humans being evil to other humans, just nothing else to it, it's almost too heavy. The glitch and paranormal factor, it removes you from the situation a bit, if you understand my meaning. And yeah, that closeness to the event is hard to digest, at least for me. I know a lot of people crave it, they go cuckoo bananas for it, Fair enough, if that's the case, but damn. I think because this has a happy ending, that's why I love it so much. You have the, you could say, accoutrement of the guardian angel. I think guardian angel, saving the day, giving you the ability to survive a 70 mile per hour roll on a highway asphalt. That isn't something that I think most people can do. Can guardian angels infuse like extra iron skin on us in those moments? Protect us from injury? Give us the timing we need to escape, danger? There's a lot of questions in that. I don't know if it is purely your subconscious, and that was all there is to it. I don't think so. I think there's more to it, but regardless of all that, I just love a happy, lethal ending. Exactly what he deserved. Story by Shelly74053. Between Heaven and Earth. It happened years ago when my daughter was just a tiny thing, maybe 4 or 5 months old, buckled safely in her car seat behind me. I was driving home just after 3 in the morning, which wasn't unusual back then. I can't even recall where I'd been, but I think it was work, most likely, or my mom's place after for a bit. Night shifts were brutal. The highway stretches out ahead, quiet and deep, the endless night. Feels like the world belongs to you. I do love that. The radio was on low, just enough to keep me company, enough to keep my eyes open, and the stillness of my sleeping baby in the back. Those are the things I remember most clearly. At one point, I glanced in the rearview mirror just to see her face, peaceful and unaware. Then suddenly, a semi was beside me, out of nowhere. I don't know where it came from at all. One moment the lane was empty, the next it was filled with this massive truck drifting into mine. I've always called it a swerve, but it wasn't sharp or sudden. It felt slow, almost careless, like the driver didn't even realize I was there. He was probably tired. I had nowhere to go, no shoulder, no room, no time. The only way left was off the road, and off meant down. Not a ditch, but a real slope, steep and murderously unforgiving. The second my tires left the pavement, I wasn't driving anymore. We were falling. As the car started to slide, I pressed on the gas. I don't know why. It makes no sense. Racing forward into darkness with my baby in the back. I've replayed it endlessly. Maybe some instinct thought speed would help me steer better or grip the sloped ground. But it was purely instinct again. I wasn't thinking. I was panicking. But then another part of me woke up, the part that knew better, and I began repeating over and over, either aloud or in my mind, "Step on the brake! Step on the brake!" But I couldn't. Not because I was frozen with fear, not because I hesitated, but because my foot wouldn't move. Fight or flight, they call it, is what most would say this was. But it's more than freezing from my lizard brain. It felt physically held down, like something was pressing it flat against the floor. It wasn't me. It was as if an unseen hand had reached in and taken control. I was screaming at myself to stop, but my body wouldn't listen. I know how ludicrous that sounds. I've seen the look people give when I say it, so I don't tell this story very often anymore. I don't expect anyone to believe it. The car kept sliding. Those few seconds stretched and blurred. I remember the pull of the hill, the dark beyond the headlights, while the ground gave way beneath us. Then I heard it. A voice. Not mine. Very clearly not mine. I've thought about this so damn much, wondered if it was just my mind reframing its own thoughts. But at that moment I knew better. It felt like someone else was there, calm, steady, clear, and they said, "Okay, now you can step on the brake." Just like that, the weight lifted. I pressed down, slowed the car, and we came to rest at the bottom, upright, intact. All four wheels on the ground, and not a scratch on us. My daughter never even woke up. I turned to check on her before I even realized we'd stopped, and there she was, breathing softly, completely untouched by what had just happened. I don't know if that made it easier or harder. Meanwhile, I just sat there, hands still on the wheel, heart pounding. I don't remember how help arrived after this because I don't recall placing any calls. Maybe the truck driver did. But eventually, a tow truck came, and a state trooper. They walked around the car, studied the tire marks, climbed the hill, and came back down, shaking their heads. The tow driver said he couldn't believe the car hadn't rolled. Given the angle, the speed, it should have flipped, that it didn't make any sense to him at all. The officer was more direct. He told me, gently but firmly, that if I'd braked even a second sooner, the car would have tipped forward and rolled. He'd seen this kind of accident dozens of times. A sad statement in itself, isn't it? The window for stopping safely was razor thin, and somehow I'd hit it, or something had made sure I did. The only damage? A hole in the oil pan. That was it. No injuries or broken glass. Just a small puncture under a car that, by every law of physics, shouldn't have stayed upright. People have said it doesn't add up. They're right, it doesn't. Only my parents believe me, without question. I don't know what that voice was. It didn't sound like a distorted voice or some angel. It sounded perfectly human, but very clear. Story by Loop Fruit Throw, Following the Glow. When I was a kid, my family took a vacation to Mexico. To preface, we are from the Chicago area, so a few days' worth of driving. We left in the winter. We are used to snow and dangerous driving conditions. So, we went to Mexico, and I guess it was one of those rare snowstorms in the south. Can't recall what state exactly, but it was horrible, and adding the fact that the region was not accustomed to these conditions made it worse. It was nighttime, and everyone was passed out except my dad, so I'm not a first-person witness. I had the story told back to me by my dad. The conditions are horrible, people losing control, and a lot of collisions. I can't recall the series of events, but eventually there was a point where my dad started to lose control of the vehicle. He spun out but was able to gain traction again. As he was doing that, a glowing white truck appeared. When I say glowing, it wasn't a dingy white-worn semi. He said it had an aura and glow. With everything going on and visibility was declining, my dad was able to see this truck perfectly. My dad is not a religious man, but he swears that semi was otherworldly. Just the feeling he got, he felt protected, and as soon as he got behind this semi, he said the road felt normal. Literally, people around him are losing control, and he and this semi are gliding effortlessly. He said he followed the semi through, and when we left the area and hazardous conditions subsided, he changed lanes to pull up next to wave a thanks. He swears in the moment he took to check to switch, the semi was gone. He said the switch took a matter of seconds as there wasn't anyone on the road. There were no exits for a few miles. I'm convinced because I barely slept in the car due to anxiety, and then the night when conditions are horrible, I was knocked out. My mother, who holds the handle above the door and freaks out if you turn while doing more than 10 miles per hour, didn't wake up either. Just crazy stuff, I guess. My dad didn't hear any voices, but he felt such emotions over it. Story by Killer DJ 93, Grandpa's Ghost Copilot. Okay, so this isn't my story. It's my grandpa's wild ride. Literally. I wasn't there, obviously, but man, every time he tells it, the hairs on my arms stand up. It's not just that he dodged disaster, it's how he did. He was cruising through an intersection when out of nowhere, a semi came barreling in from the side, blowing a red light, no brakes at all, just straight at him. He saw those headlights filling his windshield. Seriously, he said they were inches from his front fender. Then a voice, someone, just tells him to floor it. Now here's the kicker, he was alone. No passenger, no backseat buddy, nobody. But he heard it and he said it was clear as day. Go, go, go! So he stomped the gas and shot through the intersection. And get this, he heard the crash. Not maybe a noise, not sounded like metal. He heard the semi slam into his car, like full-on impact sound. Metal crunching, glass shattering, the whole deal. But nothing hit. There was no debris. His body didn't move, the car didn't wobble. Nothing. Just silence after the sounds and voice. He kept driving, not sure how far. Eventually he pulls over, jumps out, expecting to see a mangled fender or at least a scratch. Nada. Not a dent or even a scuff. The car looked like it just rolled off the showroom floor, just as he keeps it. Pristine quality. And the voice. That wasn't some random thought of his. He knows that. Every time he told me this story, he made sure to emphasize the point that it wasn't his inner monologue. I wasn't there, so I can't vouch for every detail. But he's my grandpa, the best man I know, and I trust him with my life. I believe him. I was asking myself, do I externalize the ability of people, and perhaps myself, I've never need to use it, but the ability to save ourselves, to protect ourselves? Are there guardian angels that are above us, watching, looming, the guardian angel perched on our shoulder to jump in when we need it? Or is it all on us? Maybe none of that is real and it's all on us and we're just amazing beyond our ability to perceive or quantify. Yet. I don't know. It's almost like, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but the ancient aliens that are, built the pyramids, the idea that aliens built the pyramids is an interesting concept, but it also removes something from us, from the people that lived back then. Maybe it was just thousands upon thousands of slaves that hauled stones via logs and rolled them to the pyramids and stacked them up high. If you have enough people and enough will and enough time, I suppose that's possible. So maybe it wasn't aliens. I don't really go down that rabbit hole that much. I don't know why. It's actually fascinating. But yeah, it's just a parallel there where, like I say sometimes, I am skeptical, but I have an open mind. So I'm not a firm, there's some things that I'm almost 100% on, like quantum immortality. But and DOP. The simulation, maybe like 80%. Guardian angels, 55%. I do lean slightly in favor of them. But I also think maybe there's just our brains, our subconscious are pulling on threads of information we can't even perceive of. And somehow it lands us into situations like this where your grandpa, in this case, can really save themselves. All I mean is that I don't want to take away from the amazing essence of us as individuals. Sometimes we're saved, sometimes we save ourselves. Story by Big Bag of Nope. 10 seconds. I was threading my way up a long, rain-slicked driveway, cutting through a Maryland campus. It was a gray afternoon, the sky weeping steadily, and the world softened under a flood of water. The road stretched ahead, flanked by dense woods, their branches swaying faintly under the weight of the downpour. There was no traffic until, without warning, a certainty seized me. Just a voiceless command, clear and absolute, rising from somewhere deep beneath thought, saying, "Stop!" And I obeyed it immediately. Rain drummed on the roof, hissing against the glass. I peered through the glistening curtain toward the tree line, but I couldn't see anything at all through the heavy downpour. The trunks stood dark and slick, leaves trembling under the storm's might. What was that voice, I thought, and why the hell did I completely submit to it? This isn't Dune. Anyways, I still can't tell you why. Not then, in the moment, or now. I continued to wait. 10 seconds passed, no more. Those seconds felt like forever after the fact, when, with a roar that split the ground, a colossal tulip poplar tore from the earth and crashed across the road ahead. Not just a limb here. I'm talking a truly titan of a tree. Its trunk, thick as a porch column, was now sprawled like a fallen giant directly in my path, where I think I would have been had I kept going, where I should have been. I'm not a mathematician, but at the same time, I know. It doesn't make sense, but if I'd kept moving, if I'd dismissed that inner whisper, I'd have been underneath when it fell, and my car folded like paper beneath the sheer mass of it. Again, I know that would have happened. It even at times feels like it did. I get sick thinking about that night. So there I was, staring at the tree lying diagonally across the asphalt, roots clawing at the air like the limbs of some upturned beast. And I stared in dawning disbelief. What was it that had warned me? This couldn't possibly have been my subconscious warning me. This storm was obstructing my view, the sound of its terror blocking any external information about a tree far ahead cracking down on the road. Nothing I could know as a human being could have relayed this information. That voice, whatever it was not me. After this night, going back home, there was a weight on my chest. Not a heart attack. I mean a force. It followed me everywhere, constricting me, but I also knew, saving me, guiding me, protecting me, like an overburdening father. And speaking of which, I spoke with my dad a few days after this. I didn't tell him everything about the voice that spoke to me, but enough that he got the sense it wasn't a normal reaction. And all he said to me was that he loved me and knew I would always be okay, even though he couldn't be there for me. Story by Gloss Glove 69. Time and Syrup. I was 13 when the world cracked open and time turned to freaking syrup. I was on my bike, spinning wheels through the hum of an afternoon with half an eye on the road and the rest on nothing at all. Then, from the edge of my vision, a shape. Metal and glass surging forward like a wave about to crest and break. Then came just a leap, sudden and wordless, as if my bones had whispered to each other and agreed. Now move! I didn't jump because I saw the car. I jumped because something deeper than sight had already known and told me. The next thing I knew, I was lying across the hood like a figure flung from a dream, the bike vanishing beneath the tires in a crunch of twisted, deformed steel. The driver slammed the brakes. The car groaned to a halt, and I, still airborne in my own mind, was hurled backward, untethered. But that's not how it felt. Not really. Between the moment I saw the car and the moment I flew from the hood, time didn't just slow, it unspooled. Seconds stretched into corridors. I could see the flex of my fingers before they curled, the rise of my elbows before they lifted. My arms arced upward, shielding my face and skull, not by command, but by instinct so ancient it might have been written in my blood long before thought existed. Adrenaline is incredible, but it can't do this. It wasn't me moving my body, or rather it was a version of me I'd never met, one that lived beneath language, beneath reason. Like Goku in those old Dragon Ball episodes, when his body dodges a blast before his brain catches up, I became a passenger in my own skin. My limbs moved with a will of their own, choreographed by some silent guardian deep within. At 13, I had no words for this, no philosophy, only the raw, trembling truth. 1 second, I was pedaling through sunlight, the car emerging, my body flying, the bike collapsing, my arms rising like shields summoned by ghosts. It all felt so orchestrated. Not by fate, maybe, but by something buried in the wiring of flesh and nerve, a self older than consciousness. Afterward, the moments blur, the shouting, the hands pulling me up, the dented remains of my bike, all of that fades away. But the accident itself, that remains etched in hyper-clarity, stretched across a slow-motion canvas where every micro-movement is preserved. Was this a brain recording trauma in high definition? Maybe. But maybe there's more. Some hidden layer of being where the soul knows before the mind does. Before that day, I would have laughed at talk of spirits, reflexes beyond reason, forces we can't name. Afterward, I had felt it, the autonomy of my own flesh leaping ahead of thought. I'm trying to flex my extravagant writing skills to really bring this experience to life. Hope you felt it too. So first off, Goku DBZ reference, automatic like for me, just no way around that. And yeah, I think this is a fun story to listen to read, because of all those flourishes, even though it can be a bit grandiose at times. But that's okay, it's fun, it's your experience, just spice it up. Story by Starry Spelunker. Green means go. I was driving home from school that day, and it felt like any other ordinary afternoon. Heading back after classes, probably lost in my own thoughts about what had happened at school. Then there's a particular stretch of road I often took, and at one point I came to a stoplight. To my right was a turn lane, and another car was waiting there, just like mine. I don't remember anything about the vehicle or the driver. It was simply someone else pausing for the light. The signal was about to change. I was looking ahead, ready to go when it turned green, when suddenly, this voice, a man's voice, clear, firm, urgent, lurches out. "Don't move." It wasn't loud, but it was intense. And what makes it so hard to describe is that I didn't hear it with my ears. No one was beside me, no radio, no shout from another car. It came from inside my freaking head, but it didn't feel like my own thinking. My inner voice sounds like me. I know how my thoughts sound and feel. It landed like a message spoken directly to me, except without any actual sound. The best I can say is that it felt placed there. And instantly, my body reacted. My back stiffened. I froze. The light turned green. Normally, I'd have gone, of course I would have. Green means go, duh, especially when the road ahead is clear. But I stayed put. I remember making the choice at that moment, even though I couldn't explain why. There was no logic to it besides the conjuration of a mysterious voice inside me. That's all there was. Just that voice. And for some inexplicable reason, I trusted it. No, it was deeper than trust. I can't find the word for it. Then, the car in the turn lane roared forward, not turning, but speeding straight through the intersection. I watched it shoot across and start weaving down the road. It was a quiet 2-lane street. I don't know what was happening with that driver. Maybe something was wrong, health or substances, I can't say, but I do know this. If I'd moved when the light changed, my car would have been right in that space. Then finally, I drove on. I just kept going home, paying much closer attention to the road than I had just minutes before, but the voice stayed with me. Just those 2 wild words. Don't move. It really felt like a message received. Over the years, I've tried to make sense of that difference. But telling people I heard a voice, but it wasn't mine, isn't exactly a wise move. I won't even tell my therapist that. And then there's my mom. She's had moments like this too, so I've confided in her. Times when she just knows something before it happens, and even hears voices. But not in the crazy way we were thinking of. Her hunches aren't always exact, but often close enough that you can't easily brush them off. And sometimes she knows things she logically couldn't. Hearing her talk about those experiences over the years made me wonder if this could be something that runs in families. Is there such a thing as inherited intuition? I don't know. I'm not claiming I've got some special gift, and the voice I heard felt like much more than just a strong gut feeling. I really don't know what to believe, I guess. Haven't heard it since then. People often sense danger before they can explain why, but even that doesn't fully capture the experience of the voice. It wasn't, that car seems off. It was a direct instruction, clear and completely sudden. Oh, and the voice wasn't scary at all. In fact, I hope I hear it again one day, when I need to. On a different note, instead of saying, okay, are guardian angels real? Are we our own guardian angels? What if... I'm thinking back to a story about telepathic communication with an alien. I think this person was in the desert, and they were mostly alone, and they heard a voice in their head, and they were convinced it was alien. The alien was saying, don't worry or don't fear, or something to that effect. The idea is, what if our guardian angels really are above, but they're alien, not spirits or angels or simulation developers? Might still be a simulation, but maybe for our current reality in the simulation on this planet, maybe it is just aliens. Benevolent aliens, it's an interesting idea, because I don't really believe that any species advanced enough to build ships that could reach us, I don't believe they'd be competitive or, well, competitive to an extent, but not malicious or have poor game theory, where they're just going around exterminating everyone because they're a threat or trying to gather the resources. It's pointless and unnecessary. The universe is too big to need to do that. And by going around eliminating every threat, you just create more down the road. Even though there's information delay, it's just not a good practice, no. So if aliens are here, I believe they'd be benevolent, most of them at least. Maybe all of them, in fact, probably all of them, just because of that logic. You can't get here as a species to develop that technology unless you're fairly advanced. Not just technologically, but culturally as well. They would have a practice of non-aggression, I think. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I don't know if I really go into that, but very interesting. Maybe sometimes aliens are looking out for us. Just hopefully not as pets or something like that. View us as a bit above that. Okay, so tons of great stories as always, but the first one has to be my favorite. Just the potency of that story. And her daring escape, and it's just miraculous on so many levels. And the bow at the end where he actually gets his comeuppance. Perfect. Can't get better. Now time for the jokes. We need them. Strangely, I found stir-fry all over my bed this morning. Must have been sleepwalking again. Wonder if there are people who cook while sleepwalking. Beyond like just making a sandwich or something. Luke Skywalker never dreamed he'd get to meet the Emperor, so when it finally happened, he was shocked. So was Windu. I got kicked out of the nativity play because I kept singing Nickelback. I guess I never made it as a wise man. I like Nickelback, so sue me. I asked my husband to make the bed and he just stared at me. What? Him. Make the bed do what? Issue a command. My wife and I were arguing over the term for a medieval soldier. It was getting late though, so we called it a knight. Perfect. Flawless. Alright, more glitches up here. Check them out. See you next time.